This conference will now be
Okay,
recorded.
and Luis, welcome on the Zoom, and I won't be able to see the screen as I'm scrolling the sources over there. Okay, so today's topic is Maarat Hamachpelah, which is Maarat, the cave Hamachpelah. The root of the word Machpelah is kefel. Kefel is double, is pairs, and we'll soon see, right? So that is the official name. Is also known as the tomb of the patriarchs, the tomb of the matriarchs, right? And that is, of course, in Hebron. And yes, on my trip, Natalie and I did go to Maarat Hamachpelah and had a very beautiful and meaningful experience there. You have to travel. It's in Yehuda Shomron, right? And some of the traveling there at times can be precarious. So we opted not to take our rent a car, um, but instead we took the train from Netanya to Yerushalayim, and the whole train system there is incredible. What they've done now, and the trains you're literally going through mountains, and from Jerusalem to Ben Gurion Airport is a 24-minute train ride, right? Which is really incredible. It takes about 15 minutes once you get into the airport until you get to the area over there, going through security and this and that. And this is 24 door to door. And then we took a bus to Hebron, and no incidents whatsoever. And Rabbi Machpelah, we'll soon see some of the sources, but something that struck me when we were there in Israel is that Kalev, who was one of the 12 scouts that was sent to the land, and he and Yehoshua didn't go rogue, right? And we're told that Kalev took a detour, and he said, if I am in Israel, how can I not go to the burial place of the Avot and Imahot, of the patriarchs and matriarchs? And he took a detour over there, and he prayed that Hashem should help him to be strong, going against the pulls and the persuasions of the Meraglim. So now and I had the same feeling. If we are here in Israel, how can we not go? How can we not go to Maarat Hamachpelah? And I would say, religiously speaking, the two also Kever Rachel, which we didn't get to, but the Kotel and Maarat Hamachpelah, the Kotel is bringing our connection back to the temple era and that point of our history, and all of Israel, but particularly Maarat Machpelah, brings you back to the very start of our beginnings. Yes.
Quick addition about Caleb. According to Arizal, he was a reincarnation of Eliezer, servant of Abraham. And that basically praying at his master.
Oh, so you wanted to go back to Abraham.
Whatever it was.
Okay.
Obvious to
Okay.
be good to be.
I was not aware of that. That's interesting teaching.
To be everything.
Right. So Sasha Alex is saying that according to the Arizal was the great Kabbalist, and he works very deeply in Gilgulim, who are the reincarnations of different people. Now, it doesn't mean a full reincarnation. Typically, when we look at reincarnation, meaning that the person did not complete what they needed to do and they need to come back, right? We also speak about, being a nitzutz of Moshe Rabbeinu, right? So Moshe completed his job, right? But there are these aspects, whatever that means, nitzutzot, sparks of the soul that sometimes come out. And according to the Arizal, Alex said that Kalev was a Gilgul of Eliezer. Eliezer was the servant of Abraham who went to find the wife for Yitzchak, and therefore he wanted to go back and connect to all of those that he had such a strong connection to in his lifetime. Yes, Dov. Okay, so in Hebron you have the Jewish area of Hebron, which is known as Kiryat Arba, and I think for the most part, the Jews who choose to live in Kiryat Arba are religiously inspired to live there, and I would say that it is a shchuna dati. It is a religious neighborhood that the people who live there are religious. Okay, so let's go to the very beginning of our connection. Well, the beginning that the Torah tells us about our connection to Maarat Hamachpelah, and then we'll go from there back earlier to what prompted the decision that took place. So we begin in Bereshit chapter 23. We have both in Hebrew and English on our source sheet. Batamat Sarah died Kiryat Arba. In Kiryat Arba, he Hebron in the land of Canaan. I mentioned on Shabbos, Canaan, they explain, comes from the term Hachna'ah. Hachna'ah is a willingness to submit one's will to a greater will. And that is something that takes place in the land of Canaan, where we submit our will to that of God above. Avram came to eulogize Sarah and to bewail her and to cry on her behalf. Actually, I would not translate it as bewail. The reason, if you're following in the Hebrew, the last word in the pasuk there's livkota, and there's a small kaf in the way it's transcribed here, and in the Torah itself. That's one of the places where we have either a letter written larger or smaller than the other letters. And the commentators point out, Liv Kota is written, the cup is written smaller. Right? His crying was very, very contained. It wasn't I think bewailing like this, right? It was a very, very contained cry because she had died at the ripe old age and accomplished so much. Therefore, there is the sadness, as there always is, but it was not something that we would term a tragic death. It was the end of a lifetime, and therefore I would shy away from bewailing her. However, we continue. Avram got up from before Sarah, and he spoke to the Bnei Chet, the children of Chet, the Chittites, saying, I'm a resident, I'm an alien amongst you, a foreigner. Sell to me, give to me a burial site amongst you, that I may bury my dead from before me. And give to me Maarat Hamachpelah. He wanted specifically Maarat Hamachpelah, the cave of Machpelah. I will soon see Rashi. And why was it called Machpelah? Give me the cave of Machpelah, Asher Lo, that belongs to him. I skipped a few psukim over there, but he asked to speak to Ephron Hachiti, and let him give me or sell to me the tomb, the cave of Machpelah, Asher Lo B'Ktsei Sadeh, which is at the corner of his field. The Kesef Maleh Yitnenuli, full price. He should give it to me, B'tochechem la'achuzat kever, as a burial site in your midst. Ephron comes forward and says, next pasuk, again, I'm filling it a little bit. Adoni, my master, Shma'ini, listen to me. Eretz arba me'ot shekel kesef, beini v'incha, mahi. That's like you go in the Arab shuk. Between you, right? For you, I do special, right? Eretz, a land that is arba me'ot shekel kesef, beini v'incha. That's 400 silver shekels between me and you. Mahi, what is it? Et metcha kavor, go bury your dead. So what he's doing over here is a classic maneuver. First of all, when you're going to be haggling, you always want to start high because you know it's going to come down somewhere in the middle, right? But here's even worse than that. Avram, right? He said, "I'll give it to you for free." Avram says, "No, I want to pay." Okay, so now Avram can't, if he gives an astronomical price, Avram can't say, well, that's a little bit high. I offer to give it to you for free. Take it for free. You don't want it for free? Don't take it for free. But this is the price. So therefore, he really had Avram's back against the wall over here, right? By naming this, according to the sages, this astronomical price. What's 400 silver shekel between you and me? Meit chakvar vayishma Avraham. So the English says Avram accepted Ephron's terms. Avram heard. Avram understood exactly what was happening over here, but he wanted to make sure that this would be clear and clean without there being any possibility of it being challenged. Yeah. Well, he tried his best. Let's just say that, right? Avram heard to Ephron. Vayishkol Avram Ephron. He paid out to Ephron. Et hakesef asher diber, the money that he had spoken, the price that he had set. Abim el shekel kesef over la socher, at the going, that the 400 shekel silver at the going merchant's rate. And Rashi there also explains that well, it used to be the way we would say it was, he didn't want shekel, he wanted dollars, right? He wanted the best currency. Actually, now in Israel, people don't want dollars. They want shekel, right? The shekel rate has against the shekel is very strong against the dollar. They're not interested in dollars. They're very happy with the shekel. And those who are getting their salaries, living in Israel, getting their salaries in dollars, who used to be at the top of the wheel, are now struggling and suffering. But he paid the highest amount. Just again, in Hebrew, an interesting nuance. Ephron in this pasuk is written missing a vav, right? Ephron throughout is written ayin pei resh vav nun. Here it's written without a vav. And once again, commentators point out a fantastic thing. If you add up the numerical value of the name Ephron without a vav, okay, you see the line where it says Abraham accepted Ephron's terms? Go up to the Hebrew above that, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go from the Hebrew side. The fourth word is Ephron written with the vav, and then he paid Ephron written without a vav. The numerical value of Ephron without a vav, ayin, is 70. Pei is 80. We're at 150. Resh is 200. We're at 350. Nun is 50. We're at 400. So Ephron basically became Mr. 400. Right? That is his legacy, this overcharging of Avraham. Okay. Therefore, Vayakam, he was a Lord. Vayakam Sidei Ephron Shemachayla V'Ashel Fein. So therefore that field and the cave that was there and all the trees of the field, it all became LaAvraham, LeMikneh, LeEnei B'nei Chet, to Avram as his acquisition, before the eyes of B'nei Chet, B'chol Ba'ei Sha'iro, right? And it's done in front of all those who were by the gate, meaning this was not a little private deal that could later on be contested. It was done with great fanfare, with great publicity, many people attending. The Achar Ekain, afterwards, Karvar Avram at Sarah Ishto, Avram buried Sarah, his wife, El Maarat, in the cave of Hamachpelah, Al Pnei Mamre, He Chevron be'eretz Canaan. That is Chevron in the land of Canaan. Vayakam Hasadev Amara Shebo. It then passed over or arose literally to Avram as an achuzat kever. Okay, so Avraham was all focused on this cave being the place for the burial. Okay. Why? How did he know? Why did he want to be there? And how did he know that was the place? So let's go to the next source, the bottom of page 1, the bottom of the first side of the notes. Rashi, Bikiryat Arba, right? Al Shem, why was it called Kirya, the city or the town of Arba, of 4. Al Shem Arba Anakim, Shahayu Sham. There were 4 giants that were there that made this place well known. It was on the map. Achiman, Sheshai, V'Talmai, V'Avihem. Okay. The names were Achiman, not Shek, but Sheshai, Talmai, and their father. Those are the 4. Fair enough. Davar Acher. Rashi says another reason. Al Shem Arba Zugot. Because of the 4 couples. Shenikbaru Sham Ish V'Ishto. There were 4 couples that eventually were buried there. Meaning, right, even though at the time that Avraham was acquiring this, it might not have been, according to the first pshat, it was known as Kiryat Arba even in Avraham's time. According to the second approach of Rashi, at the time that Avraham was acquiring it, it was not known as Kiryat Arba. When the Torah was being written, right, the Torah was written during the years after Har Sinai. Well, a certain part could have been written on Har Sinai up until that point of the Torah, of the Sinai event. The rest of the Torah was written, either 2 opinions in the Talmud, in the Gemara. Either Moshe wrote it, dictated by Hashem, piecemeal during the 40 years, completing it at the end of the 40, or all at the end of the 40. So that when the Torah was being written, at that point, it was already known as Kiryat Arba. Why? Because of the 4 couples that were buried there. Who were the 4 couples? Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, Avram and Sarah, Abraham and Isaac and Rebekah, Yaakov and Leah. Yaakov and Leah, and Rachel was buried elsewhere. Okay.
Wait, how do they know that Adam and...
Okay, so now, right, Marty is my foil over here. Okay, so we're going to turn the page and look at the Zohar. As Marty's asking, how did they know that Adam and Chava were buried there? Right? Well, according to this, right, oh yeah, and how did Avraham know? Or what did Avraham know? Why was Avraham so focused on the burial taking place specifically over there? He's insisting, right? He comes here and he wants a burial place. Which burial place? I need to speak to Ephron. Ephron might have had many fields, many areas. No. I want that field with the cave that's in there. That's where I want that's the place I want to bury Sarah. And of course, he too will be buried there, as would his son and grandson and their wives. So let's go to the Zohar. Turn the page to side 2 of the sheet that I gave. And let's go to Zohar Ruth. And I'll just have to translate. We don't have the translation over here. Okay, let's go to what's underlined over there. Well, let's go from the top. Kishnolad Shet, when Seth, Shet, one of the sons of Adam and Eve, was born, Sigo Hagosh Baruch Hu Adam Arishon Lamal Mikol Artzot L'Tevel, V'Makam Eretz Yisroel B'Chevron. God, so to speak, lifted up Adam above all the lands to the land to the Eretz Yisroel in Chevron. Visham, and there prepared a burial place for Adam. V'asam Ma'ara lifnim mi Ma'ara, and he made a cave within the cave, samuch legan Eden, close by to Gan Eden. Let's remember, Gan Eden was here on earth. And this was samuch, near to the place where Gan Eden was on earth. V'sham hayta kvurato. And that's where his burial took place, Adam. Ukfurat, in the burial of Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yaakov, Va'ima. So the matriarchs. Rabbi Kisma, underline now, Amar, Maarat Hamachpelah, Samuch, Lepetach Gan Eden. That was nearby to the entrance to Gan Eden. B'shah shemeta Chava, when Chava died, ba Adam lekavra sham. Adam came to bury her there. B'sham hareach me'reichut Gan Eden, ba'ota hareach shehayasham. Because there, the fragrance was from the fragrance of Gan Eden, which Adam was able to recognize, right? Because that's where he was there. Ratza lachtzov yoter, he wanted to dig further. Yatzta batkol, a heavy voice came out, but Amran said, dayecha, enough. Ba'otasha amad, he started lo chatzav yoter, didn't dig anymore. Visham nikvar, and that's where he was buried. Minit asekbo, who dealt with the burial of Adam? Shet bino, his son Seth. Shehu haya bidmuto uvitzalmo, because he was in that image of Adam. Rabbi Ruchamai disagrees. HaKadosh Baruch Hu nitasek bo. Hashem dealt with him kishen when he was formed, v'nitasek bo kishemet, and dealt with him also when he died. So according to that opinion, God dealt with the burial. Who else do we have that God dealt with the burial? Moshe. Right? But no one knew of that place. No one was able to identify where that place was. Ad sheba Avram Avinu alav shalom v'nichnas lisham, until Avram Avinu came and entered there. V'ra'a oto, and he saw that area. V'heireach, reach, v'samim shel Gan Eden, and he smelt the fragrance of Gan Eden. V'shama, and he heard kol, the voices of malachei hasharet, of angels, omrim, saying, Adam Arishon kavur sham. Adam Arishon is buried there. But Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, muchanim yiyu l'makom hazeh. And Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are ready for this place. Now it's interesting because the time that Avraham would have heard this, which would be before Sarah's burial, it's before the birth of Yaakov. It's before the marriage of Yitzchak, right? But the angels are telling him what's up ahead. Ra'ah haner dolek. He saw a candle burning there, or a flame that was burning there. V'yatza, and he went out. Miyad hayta ta'avato. His desire was al hamakom hazeh. Right? His desire was for that place. Before Avram came along, many wanted to be buried there. Right? They used to bury in caves. This was an eligible place. But the angels were guarding the place. And there'd be a fire burning there, and people could not enter. Ad sheba Avraham, until Avram entered the nichnas the kana et hamakom, and he entered and he bought that place. Now, there's more Zohar on this. Let's go a little further. This is both in Hebrew and English. Releza said, Bishata, at the time, Da'al Avraham b'Maarata, Heach al, when he entered the cave, how did he enter? Begin to have Rahit Abatre Tahahu Egla. He was running after that calf. What is that calf? As it says, Ve'ela Bakar Ratz Avraham, and to the cattle, Avraham ran. When did Avraham run to the cattle? When the angels, the passers-by, and Avraham ran to the Bakar to prepare a lavish meal for these angels that he thought were regular people. And Ba'u ben Bakar Arak, that Ben Bakar, Arak, nothing to do with the drink. Arak is Aramaic for fled. Ad ha'umarata, right? To that cave. Va'al batre, Avram ran after it. V'chama ma dechama. And he saw that which he saw, as we said above, a candle burning there. And according to the Zohar above, he heard this voice saying, this is the burial place of Adam and Eve, and this is where you, son, grandson, and wife, daughter-in-law, granddaughter-in-law, will be buried. Zohar goes further. The two, furthermore, begin to Ehud Saleh, Kol Yoma V'Yoma. Avraham prayed each and every day. V'havi napik ad hahu chakal. And you go out to the field. You go out to the field in order to pray. Davi Salik Reichin Ilan. You go out to the field because there was this beautiful fragrance there. The Chama Nahora, and he saw this light. The Napik Migo Marata that was coming out from the cave. And he understood there's something special holy over here. V'tzalei Taman, and he went in there to pray. V'taman Malil Imei Kuchabrichu, and in there God spoke with him. Begin kach, and that's why Ba'a lay. He wanted that cave, specifically that area. Hava Bahau Atar Tadir. His ta'ava, his desire, his want, his yearning was for that place constant. So that was the place where Abraham understood. That's where he wanted to be. That's where he wanted to bury Sarah. He would be buried, like I said before, son, grandson, daughter-in-law, granddaughter-in-law. That is the place that. So I said before, the kotel brings us back to the temple times, right? This Maarat Hamachpelah takes us back not just to our nation origin, Avram and Sarah, but takes us back all the way to Adam and Chava. And when you go there, and it was they were doing some shiputzim, some reconstructing work over there. So they weren't letting people in, right? So we're only on the outside by the seventh step. I'll explain what that is in a moment. But then, so they have a little shul in Beis Medrash. I went to daven mincha there, and then they started letting some people in. Well, there was a big group from NCSY that went in while we were davening, so we couldn't kind of slip in with them. But as they were coming out, we asked to go in, and the soldiers said, we can't. But then there was someone there who was a bit of a macher, one of the organizers there. And he said, just stay here a couple minutes, right? And then he said, come. And we had about 15, 20 minutes there. And there's a real power, when you're standing at the place, right? And you're saying your Tehillim, you're offering your own personal prayers by the place of Avram, literally, Avram and Sarah. And there are these rooms, this is the Avram room, Sarah room, right? And the Yitzchak room was completely off. That's where they're doing the fixing up. But by the Yaakov, I mean, it's so powerful.
You're talking about this floor where.
Correct.
It's not like under.
Correct. The actual burial is underground, and they built on top of that, right? These different tombs. Yes.
So historically, it's very interesting that the building of the Maarat is the one surviving building built during produce that still pretty much exists as it was.
Yeah.
And if you look at the lower part of the wall of Maarat, it's the same corroding stone as the Kotel.
At the Kotel, yeah.
And there's a lot of people who say that the upper part was basically the same design as how it was at the Kotel. Because we know that the Romans, they destroyed only the upper part of the wall. But,
right.
But with at least some concept of what that part was, how those it's a more of an intricate design.
Yeah.
Look at that as
yeah. Thank you, David. Yeah, and the Gemara says that anyone who did not see the beauty of the way Herod had made the walls there, right, by the reconstructing work he did by the Second Temple, if you didn't see that, you never saw a beautiful building. Right, that it was really, really overwhelming in its appearance. Yeah.
So it's a cave no more?
The cave is underneath. Oh, it's under.
It's still there. They've done, people have, years ago, worked parts of it. Some information within the Maarat. There's all kinds of signs. I wasn't sure that was accessible to stuff, but it talks about
Nice.
those investigations.
Nice. Yeah. And the story that's told is that anyone who would go down there would not come out alive, and that one of the Muslim sultans, whatever he was, he dropped his sword down there, and everyone's afraid to go down. So he told the Jews, so that, you got to send someone down. And there was a certain elderly Rav who was a tzaddik, and he said, "I'm already advanced in years. I will go down." And he went down and was able to come up unscathed. Yeah.
I remember the story about the girl daughter of one of the persons who actually helped to get down there, and I have the whole story in Russian. I need to find it.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, young girl, too small.
So if you go back to the upper part of the page again, Rav Avadia Bar Tanura, right, 1445 to 1515, he writes of his visit to Maarat Hamachpelah. Now, this was under Muslim rule for there was the Ottomans, right, for hundreds and hundreds of years. It was under Christian rule, Crusades, then Muslim rule, then Christian rule, and Muslim rule. It had been under Muslim rule though during this time period. Rabbi Avadia Bar Tanura, right? Nothing to do with the wine, right? So that is he is the commentator on Mishnah, right? When you buy a set of Mishnayot, he is the principal commentator on the Mishnah. He wrote as follows: Hayiti Maarat Hamachpelah. I was at Maarat Hamachpelah. V'yesh aleh binyan gadol sheYishmaelim. There is a tall building built by the Yishmaelim, the Ishmaelites. V'kavod gadol ve'emi yatera noagim Yishmaelim v'chamahu. They give tremendous honor and awe to this place. Ubaim, they come mikol malchut Yishmael, from all the kingdoms of Yishmael. They come l'shateach sham, to bow there. U'toch ha'ma'ara atzma, and within the cave itself, asher ba kvurim ha'avot, where the patriarchs and matriarchs are buried, lo yikanei sham, no one goes there. Lo Yehudi, v'lo Yishmaeli, neither a Jew nor an Ishmaelite. Aval ondan Yishmaelim lamala, they stand above the derech aruba, and via an aruba, a window, a portal, mishalshim lamata avukot dolkot, they lower down candles burning, torches that are burning. Shemalikim sham tamid b'toch ha'ma'ara, so there's always lights burning there in the cave. V'aba'im l'shatech sham min Ishmaelim, and those who come to pray from amongst the Ishmaelites, mitnavim ma'ot, they donate money, umashlichem b'toch ha'ma'ara, and they throw it into the cave, derech ha'arubot hain, via these windows. And when they want lakachan misham, when they want to take the money from there, mishalshim b'chavalim, they lower using ropes, na'ar katan, a young lad, batul, a virgin young lad, el tocham ma'ara, into the cave, v'lokeach ha'ma'og v'oleh, and then he gathers the money and they take him out of there. Kach safru like tzat yudim sham. That's what some of the Jews there told me. The Chol Chevron and all of Chevron, the Sadat and the fields, the Migrasheh and the other areas around, Haim, they all are part of this Maarat Hamachpelah. Uv'chol yom, and every day mechalkim, they give out lechem unazid adashim, they give out bread and lentil soup, o tavshil acher, shel kidniot, or another bean dish, la'aniyim, that's distributed to the poor that are there, right? There's like a soup kitchen over there. Dein lani Yishmael o liudim arelim, whether you're an Ishmaelite, a Jew, or an uncircumcised, or neither Muslim or Jewish. Lichvodo shel Avram Avinu. This is all in honor of Avram Avinu, who was legendary in terms of his hospitality. V'chalon katan yesh michutz l'choma, and there is a small window outside of the wall, asher al gav Maarat, right, which is on top of the cave. V'omrim shachalon hu yored lamata neged kivro shel Avinu, that is aligned with the burial place of Adam Avinu. V'sham nitan reshut liyudim lishtateach ulitpalel, and there Jews are allowed to go, to bow, and to pray, nochach, across from hachalona, across from that window. Achein b'toch hachoma shel agabi Maarat, but in the area that's above the Maarat, that's where the Muslims go. Lo yuchlu likanes. Jews were not allowed to go there. Bani palalti nochach hachalon hakatanahu, and I prayed across from that chalon. So when we first went, so if you can't get into the even the general area that which we're able to get into, so that's where Jews go and pray, and that is, you might have heard about the 7 steps. So Jews were allowed to go up to the 7th step, right? But not beyond that, right? And it always amazes me when people blast, oh, it's apartheid in Israel, right? Jews are not allowed into Saudi Arabia. Non-Muslims are not allowed into certain cities, right? Into Mecca of Saudi Arabia, right?
That was Matzah to 67.
I'm sorry?
67, that was the Matzah.
Yeah, Jews were not allowed, right? 1967, the 6-Day War, that's where we regained control of Yehuda and Shomron. I don't refer to it as the West Bank because even the East Bank of the Jordan was part of biblical Israel. That's what was given to the 2.5 tribes, to Reuven, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh. And that's when we once again have access. As part of, I think it was the Y Accords, so we agreed, at least at that point, that the Waqf, which is the Islamic governing body, would have a certain degree of control over there. But at this point, I think we are asserting a little more control over there. There's a very fascinating Gemara, which is on the bottom of the second side, Talmud Kedushin 2b. The Gemara explains, how do we know? The Gemara spoke about different ways that a Jewish marriage can be affected. And the way that we affect our Jewish marriages today is through kesef, right? The husband gives to the groom, I should say, gives to the bride, right? Something of value, or we give a ring, and says, Hariyam Mukudeshetli, you are betrothed to me with this ring. How do we know that kesef is a means of effecting kedushin? Gemara answers, Gamar kicha misade Ephron. This is a concept called the Gezerah Shava. Gezerah Shava is when you have the same word written in 2 places. When we have a tradition, a teaching dating back to Moshe, all the way down to us, that these words are meant to be learned as a Gezerah Shava, so it makes it Shaveh. It connects the two. It's like a pipeline connecting the two, right? What we would say in our terms, it's a hyperlink, right? When you're on the computer, a hyperlink does what? You click there, and what happens? Next thing you know, you're connected to the other place. So Gezerah Shava is basically a hyperlink connecting the two. So over here by marriage, it says ki yikach ish isha, when a man takes a woman. Uksiv hasam, it says over there by Abraham's acquisition, natati kesef hasadeh, I've given you the kesef, the money for the field, kach mimeni, take it from me. So here it says kach, when a man takes a woman. There it says kach mimeni, take it from me. There it's kesef. So too marriage could be affected through kesef. And at first glance, perhaps some of the women here are thinking, what? Are you telling me? So you buy a field, you get yourself a wife, That's how we learn it out. However, I would like to propose a number of different ways of looking at it. Avraham was not simply buying a field. What was Avram doing? Avram was doing, what are you saying?
Committing.
He was doing the ultimate chesed for his wife. He was doing the ultimate eternal chesed for his wife. And therefore, the connection is marriage, what Avraham did for his wife, making sure that she would have, right? I think they say about communism, it was from the cradle to the grave, right? Didn't work out that well. It wasn't so good in between, right? That was the problem, right? But the marriage is the reason we give a ring as the money value for the wedding is because a ring goes round and round. There's no beginning and end. It is eternal. And the relationship, we view that as being eternal. So we're not learning, Avram acquired a field with Kesef. That's why Bob's going to marry his wife. Bob's going to marry Susan with Kesef. No. Avram was buying the eternal place, showing the eternal chesed for his wife. And that is the connection that we have to marriage. Also realize that Avram, this was the first acquisition of a Jew in the land of Israel, right? So Avraham was connecting to the eternity of Israel by this acquisition. So to a marriage, we connect to the eternity of Israel with our marriage as we step in to continue the generations. And a third idea, then I'm open to any other ideas. Abraham was with Maarat Hamachpelah, right? This was his destiny. This was his future. And by a marriage also, a person is in marriage, both partners are fulfilling and taking a step on that great journey of their destiny. So it's not field wife, on the contrary. It's eternal kindness, it's destiny, it's Jewish people. Yes, Dov.
So what's happening there? She acquires a cave now? Is that what's happening?
Okay. Good. Yes, David.
One went through all this saying about precedence, time-wise, Hebron for Yerushalayim. So
Say it again, I'm sorry. Oh, the timeline.
Yeah. So Hebron was the capital before Yerushalayim.
Oh, yeah, right. King David was initially. Initially. Yeah. Yeah. There are four Arei Kodesh, four holy cities in Israel. What are they? Tzfat, Yerushalayim, Hebron, and Tiberia. And that actually, Tiberias.
And Tiberia is for what?
I'm not sure. But those are known as the four.
But
and
and
I'm fine. Thank you so much. Thank you, doctor. Right? And there also, we say that there are four elements that everything is made up of, right? In English, we say there's solid, liquid, gas, and energy, right? And in Hebrew, we basically say there is Esh, fire, right? There is Adamah, earth. There's Mayim, water, and there's Avir, air. And we look at these four areas, right? So you have Hebron, where the Kedusha is in the ground, in the Afar, in those who are buried there. You have Tzfat, which we visited Tzfat, and it's quite an ascent to get up to Tzfat. Tzfat is very, very airy, and there's a lot of it's a very, very spiritual, we'll say, place up there, right? Tiberias is, of course, on the banks of the Ciner, and Yerushalayim, we say, with fire it was destroyed, and with fire it shall be rebuilt. So those are the cities. I'm not sure what the specific kedusha is of either Tzfat or Tiberia. In terms of that, yeah. Yes, John.
So the Zohar, when does it date from, and what's its focus?
It's attributed. It's attributed to Rav Shimon, the teaching of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and its focus is the Sod level of Torah. Right? We say Pardes, right, which is Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, different levels of understanding the Torah, and it is the sort of the encyclopedia of Kabbalistic teachings. That's what the
so
Zohar
it's
is.
focusing on the Kabbalistic
Correct.
aspects
Correct.
of Torah.
Zohar means glow, and that is the glow of that. Yes, Beth.
What do we know about these giants? They mentioned they mentioned them somewhere else?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. All right. There are throughout Tanakh there are mentions of giants, of very, very large people.
Refuge, Og.
Og
Og.
was certainly
Rabbi.
yeah.
Yeah. So what was so the teachings were collated, or like what, in the 14th century, like 1300s, or
I think a lot earlier than that.
okay, so Zohar is very early.
Yeah, Zohar is is same time as the Talmud. Shem Yochai is in the Talmud.
Okay.
Yeah, actually the Mishnah, not the Talmud, the Mishnah.
Or so even a little earlier.
Yeah.
It's interesting about the word Livkota with a small cup.
Yeah.
I recall somewhere
So-
I read it that why actually Abraham was not so much.
He wasn't bewailing.
Yeah, because basically the idea was, what I remember, was since event with Sarah happened after Aikeda with Yitzchak,
So he went connected to.
so accuser wouldn't use it as he actually sorry for what he did,
Right.
so to annul it.
Yeah.
That's something I remember.
Yes.
Interesting idea.
It's a
Like
very
if
nice.
somebody does something,
very nice
and then
shot.
later say, "Oh,
He regrets
I would
it.
better not to do it." And it was
Yeah.
really
The
great.
Gemara says that the only way, well, we know there's a concept of teshuva, and teshuva can erase bad that one has done. So there's always the balance, right? So the only way to erase any good that you have done is if you do teshuva, meaning if you regret having done, right? One of the main components of teshuva is regret. If you regret what you have done, the good, that could also erase it. Yeah, so that's connected over there. Nice.
So how come the judgment was made not to have like a third line of commentary or writings in the Talmud, and besides Gemara talking about Mishnah, why wasn't there generally?
We do.
this,
We have all the Rishonim. If Rashi and Tosfos, they're all explaining. The Gemara is explaining
right,
the Mishnah,
but
and the
why not?
Rishonim are explaining the
But
Gemara.
they don't necessarily deal with the Kabbalistic level of the Torah. How come that the decision was to make to leave
Because
out?
that was always meant to be very, very exclusive. That was meant to be exclusive. It wasn't meant to be for everyone. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here.